So we've produced quite a few videos now comparing Judaism to two of the great world Abrahamic religions, Christianity and Islam. And they've had a lot of engagement and a lot of interest. But I wanted to compare Judaism with another world religion, one that I don't think is spoken about as much or compared as much, but I think really we should spend a bit of time shining some light on this comparison because it will yield some really interesting insights. And that is the religion of Buddhism. Buddhism. How does Judaism and Buddhism compare to one another, and where do they differ? So it's interesting, in Jewish mystical texts, they talk about how, there's a verse in the Torah which is in Parshat Chayei Sarah in the book of Genesis, and it explains that, I'll just read you the verse. It says, "And to the sons of Abraham's concubines, Abraham gave gifts, and he sent them away from his son Isaac, while he, Abraham, was still alive." And where did he send them? He sent them eastward to the land of the east. So it says that Abraham sent the sons of his concubines to a land far away eastward, and he gave them gifts. And what were these gifts? Some of the Jewish commentaries explain that they weren't material gifts, they were actually spiritual gifts, spiritual insights. And there are a variety of commentators that say that the insights that he gave shaped much of Eastern religion and Eastern thinking. And when you look at the contrast between East and West, it really is quite stark. There's clearly a fundamental difference, like a yin and a yang, between the Western style of life, which is much more material and aspirational and individualist, and the Eastern side of the world, which does seem to be more communal oriented, perhaps a bit more detached from materialism and physicality, and more engaged in spirituality. What were these ideas that he taught? Well, one of the main tenets of Buddhism is the idea of how do you deal with suffering? Or how do you avoid suffering? That's one of the big problems they're trying to address. It's a great question, and it would be really useful to have a good answer to that. The insight of Buddhism is that suffering comes from attachment, desire, wanting material things, wanting your desires to be achieved, to experience pleasure. But for as long as you want those things, for as long as you seek pleasure in all elements of the physical world, in all elements of your existence, you're gonna be unhappy because we simply are unable to meet all of our desires. We just can't. There's so much of our existence that we simply can't control. And so you're going to end up frustrated, heartbroken, and you're leaving yourself vulnerable to pain by being so attached. Now, this is clearly a very wise insight, and it's self-evidently true. Now, these ideas are actually very insightful, and they're very attractive to a lot of people. You often find people who are living in the Western world and feel so burdened by our needs, they're extremely attracted to Buddhism, because Buddhism tries to give you a life philosophy that can allow you to detach a bit from needing to have all your needs met. And in some ways, people find it, well, in many ways, people find it to be really liberating, because I'm not so attached to my existence anymore. And so it actually, ironically or counterintuitively, by detaching from your desires, you can experience a greater pleasure, or at least a peace of mind, a nirvana as they call it. Now, this is a real contrast from certainly Christianity and Islam, two monotheistic offshoots of Judaism, which are much more focused on you be good, God reward you, and it's, you will have bountiful blessing, and he will give you livelihood and a spouse and all the rest of it. It's much more earthy, and it's the way in which they sort of connect to their religion and connect to God and engage in relationship with him. And it's also about spiritual needs as well, not just physical needs, but it's focused on, God will bless me spiritually, I'll get to heaven, all that kind of stuff. So you've got a Buddhism which is detached from your needs, and we have Christianity and Islam which seem to be more about, I'm in trouble, God can save me, God can help me. So it's more needs focused, right? So where does Judaism fit in all of this? And how does Judaism compare to the Buddhism concept? Buddhism, this idea, this realization that detachment of our needs, is a great path to alleviation of suffering, is clearly true. And some of the Jewish commentators on the Torah explained that this was an insight that Abraham came to realize and came to understand. And this was the gift he gave to the East. This idea that detachment from one's attachments, detachment from all of one's desires and physical existence and physical needs, not becoming so dependent on them for one's own happiness, a real change in psyche, that is a great source of contentment. And also because it's the truth. The truth is that, just thinking logically about it, I didn't ask to be born. I didn't need to be born. Life is not my project, because this was not my idea to begin with. I didn't ask to be here. So how can you tell me that I'm needy? Yes, if I don't get my needs met, then I'll be more uncomfortable, but don't make it my problem, because it wasn't my need to be here in the first place. This was not my choice. So it's insightful and powerful that when people detach from their needs, they can experience inner peace, because the truth is we were never needy to begin with. I didn't need to be here. So it's powerful and it's true. And that was a gift, an insight that Abraham came to. So then how does Judaism differ? Judaism, when you look at it, is actually very earthy. It's very earth-focused. So where does Judaism differ? So Abraham came to this realization, and then God calls to him. God comes to him and gives him a unique mission, a job. And Abraham replies saying, Hineni, here I am. What that means in layman's terms is Abraham had so detached from his own physical needs, realized that he's not actually that needy. And so when God says to him and he says, I've got a job for you, he basically said, I'm available. How can I help? I can serve you. Great. Because I'm fine. I'm not needy. I've come to that understanding. So if I can help you, brilliant. So this is what Abraham, the mission that Abraham embarked on. This is Judaism's vision, which is Judaism accepts principle number one of Buddhism, that a great source of suffering is attachment to one's physical desires. But it doesn't stop there. That's where Judaism begins. That's where Abraham begins his journey. But then the question is, all right, so what am I going to do now? Detach from the world? That's not Jewish. Judaism is very earthy. It's very earth-centric. The idea is you're not needy. So now, instead of shunning the world, instead of just detaching from the world, understand that it's not about you, not about your needs, and then understand that you're needed. So focus on not your needs, now that you've detached. Focus instead on who needs you, what you're needed for. Don't shun the world. Now go into the world and make it godly. Give. Use your existence to share, to serve others, to serve God. So Judaism is a real harmony of the Eastern side, which is you're not needy, don't focus on your needs, and perhaps the Western side and Western religion, which is more about my needs, my need to get to heaven, God blessing me so I can have a comfortable life. It's harmonizing the two and saying, on the one hand, try to calm down that voice in your head that's obsessed with your needs, and on the other hand, don't detach from the world. Now go out and see how you can serve others, do what's needed of you. So go into the world and make it godly. And don't make it about your need to get to heaven. Go into the world and focus on God's need to come down to earth. Because it doesn't make sense that if the world, the universe, earth, creation was not our project to begin with, then it can't be about my need. It's not my problem, it's not my project. It's his project. It's his problem. And so if we can be of service, great. And that's the project of Judaism. Judaism says, don't focus on your needs because you're not actually needy. Rather instead focus on what's needed of you. Now, when you engage with the world, that can lead to vulnerability, and that can lead to pain and perhaps a detachment. If you just do the Buddhist step and pure detachment, then you do avoid the risk of vulnerability. But on the other hand, yes, by engaging in the world, engaging in relationships, having a family, having a life, serving my community, there's a lot of pain and challenge that can come from that. And yes, it does open myself up to vulnerability. But as painful as it may be, for as long as I know that I'm needed and I'm necessary, I'll be able to keep going, because my focus won't be on my needs the whole time. I'll take care of my needs in so much as that's what my Creator needs me to do, but it's not about me, it's about His need. It's His need that I eat, it's His need that I sleep, it's His need that I take care of myself. Why? So that I can continue to serve Him and continue to give. And in the same way, yes, I'm open up to vulnerability when I engage in the world, but I do it because my core understands that even if it's painful, even if it's challenging engaging in this world, it's meaningful, and what I'm doing is necessary and needed by my Creator, and that sees me through. And focusing more on that than having all of my needs met is the perfect harmony and synthesis. So Judaism says, don't detach from the world, engage in it. Focus on what God needs it to be, not what you want it to be. Or, in another way of putting it, make your need His need, and make His need your need, and then you will experience complete harmony. That's the goal of Judaism. It's about God trying to come down to earth. And so we believe that in the end of days, heaven is not going to be, in Christianity, for example, it talks about the rapture and how that, everyone will ascend to heaven. Judaism doesn't believe that's what's going to go down. What's going to happen is this world is going to become an abode for God. We're not trying to get there. He's trying to come here. So we talk about this idea of Techiyat HaMetim, resuscitation of the dead. It's a huge principle in Judaism. We talk about it in the standing prayer, the Amidah, 3 times a day. Why is that such an important idea? Why is it such an important concept? Why isn't the focus on going to heaven? But we don't talk about Olam HaNeshamas, which is heaven. We talk about Olam Haba, which is when this world becomes eternal. If it was about us, then we'd be focused on getting to heaven. It's not about us. So that's where Judaism stands vis-a-vis Buddhism. Yes, we're not needy. Yes, we should detach from our needs a little bit. But why stop there when you're needed? I'm Ollie Annisfeld and you're watching JTV.